All right, good morning and welcome to St. Bridget's Spiritualist Church for March 29th. We're missing Richard, it's his birthday, so we'll have to say happy birthday in spirit. Hopefully he's feeling better. We have on April 18th and 19th, 18th? Yeah. We have Richard doing our psychic development class. So if you have any interest, sign up, get in. There's limited seats, so make sure you get signed up and take the course. It's always well received. Everybody enjoys it. And if you find that it's something that you love, you can sit in a circle after. So you can work from that. So I very much encourage you to do so. We have a evening with spirit in April as well. The last Saturday, possibly. We don't have the poster up yet, but as soon as we have the poster, then we will, 25th? Okay, April 25th. And that will be, I believe, just Reverend Richard and I doing that one. So, all right. So, today, although it's not the actual day, there's the date in the calendar. March 31st is the date that we celebrate the birth of modern spiritualism. So, it's a very special anniversary, and we do have a birthday cake for Richard. We don't have a birthday cake for this. So, but this was the moment that modern spiritualism basically said, hello, is anyone there? And someone said yes. So back in 1848, two young girls, Margaret Fox and Kate Fox, heard knocking in their home. These were young girls. Now, let's be honest, if it was you or me who heard unexplained knocking, you'd probably be running. You wouldn't be trying to answer it and find out what it wanted to say to you. I know I'd probably have started packing or, I don't know, done something if I didn't know what was going on. But they stayed and they asked questions. And just like that, it was like the first recorded Q&A of spiritualism. And here we are today, still asking, still listening, and hopefully you're not running out of the room. You're all here, so that's good. That's awesome. And so this is communication. We live in a world where if someone doesn't text you back in 5 minutes, we assume they've either lost interest, joined witness protection, died. You know, you have all these thoughts, right? But spirit has never, ever needed Wi-Fi. In 1848, in a small home in Hydesville, something started that changed everything. Not because it was loud, but because it was actually answered. One knock, a pause, another knock. And instead of ignoring this, dismissing it, or blaming it on the plumbing, they leaned in. And here's the truth. Spirit is still communicating with us today. But it's not always dramatic like knocks on the wall. Although if this happens, let me know. I'd like to come check it out. We've had a few doors open and close. Colleen's very well aware of those, but once. But it comes by subtle ways. A thought that doesn't feel like yours. A memory that shows up at an exact moment. Or a song that plays and you're suddenly like, oh, hey, that felt personal. That's spirit. The problem isn't that spirit has stopped speaking. The problem is we've gotten very good at hitting ignore. We second guess. We rationalize. We say things like, oh, that's just my imagination. Meanwhile, spirit's basically standing there like, I just moved 3 things, gave you a sign, sent you a dream, and now you're working on your playlist? What more do you want? Spiritualism teaches us something simple but powerful. Communication is a two-way street. And just like in life, if you don't respond, eventually the knocking gets louder. So today I invite you not to wait for something dramatic, but to notice what's already happening. Because the truth is, you've already heard your knock, because you're here. But you might have just called it coincidence. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all for a moment, because if I stand here pretending I've got everything perfectly figured out, spirit will humble me before I get in there to get a coffee. Seen it happen. And lately, life hasn't been exactly quiet. There have been situations of stress, uncertainty, people testing boundaries like it's an Olympic sport, and moments where I thought, okay, Spirit, I could really use a clear answer right now. And what's interesting is the answers don't always come the way we want. They don't always show up as a big booming voice that says, go left, go right. Sometimes they show up as a feeling you just can't shake. Sometimes as a door that just won't open, no matter how hard you try. And if you're like me, you try pushing it a few more times just to be sure. Or they show up as clarity about people, where you suddenly realize who's aligned with you and who's just occupying space. And that one can sting a little bit. And here's what I've come to understand. Spirit doesn't just communicate to comfort us. Spirit communicates to guide us into alignment, even when that means shifting things, changing, or ending. And I've had to remind myself more about that lately, more than once. Just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes it means it's necessary. Because that same intelligence that created the very first communication back in Hydesville with the wrappings is still working in our lives now. Still nudging, still redirecting, still staying. Trust me, even here, even now. And I'll be honest, I don't always get things right the first try. Sometimes I question it. A lot of times I overthink it. And sometimes I get a message loud and clear and pause like, oh, are we sure this is what we're doing? And every single time I've leaned in instead of pulling away, it's led me to something better. Not always easier, absolutely not always easier, but better. So if you're in a place right now where things might feel uncertain, relationships are complicated, where you're being asked to trust something you can't fully see yet, you're not off path. You might actually be right in the middle of Spirit trying to get your attention. So I want you to take a moment with no phones, no distractions, and just listen. And if you feel nothing, that's okay. Sometimes Spirit whispers, sometimes it waits, and sometimes it just lets me do all the talking. Because the truth is, it's not always a dramatic moment that changes everything. Sometimes it's just a quiet knowing that keeps tapping at you. And if you keep second guessing, it's still here and it's still knocking. Okay. So this is the anniversary. So we want to celebrate. The Spiritualist Church of Canada has something online. If you go to the website, they've got a Zoom celebration on March 31st. I can't remember the exact times, but it's in the evening. 7:30 Mountain Time, about. It'll be on their posters. If you go onto their website, you should be able to have a link. So, yes, this is the day that we celebrate the birth of modern spiritualism. So, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.